Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, continues now. Heath Perkins with me, freewatercoinco.com. We're talking about the Honest Money Report. Mm-hmm. Gold is at $4,205.90. $4,205.90. Silver at $56.95. Out of control, folks. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is Trump says, hey, your concerns about the economy? Fake. You don't need any concerns. Yeah. Hey, cost of living concerns are fake. I don't even understand a statement like that. When I go places, you can call it fake all you want, but when I don't have money in my bank account to pay for the things that I normally used to be able to pay for, I'm just telling you right now, to say that it's fake is a clown show. As Heath wisely pointed out, it's gaslighting, Heath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We're all feeling it. Again, the statement I made before, it cost Trump more money to bend over and pick up a $100 bill than step over because of his time and what he makes. So he doesn't have these kind of realistic perspectives that we do. But yes, to gaslight us all, to say that, yeah, you're imagining this. I don't know, that doesn't bode very well. But yeah, it's a very real thing, and we're all experiencing it.
Billionaire Donald, ladies and gentlemen, as president of the United States, has a $400,000 a year universal basic income. That's been the president's income for quite some time, and he doesn't even need that, does he? Anyway, very strange. All right, the Supreme Court has not yet ruled on the, quote, legality of President Trump's sweeping tariffs. But some companies, including Costco and Bumblebee Foods, they're basically filing lawsuits, hiring lawyers, because these companies are anticipating that the Supreme Court may rule against the tariffs, which they say has collected approximately $200 billion since they started. In oral arguments last month before the courts, the justices already appeared skeptical about the arbitrary tax imports, tariffs, if you will, by the president. And the latest legal move was made by Costco, which, through its lawyers, requested a federal trade commission. I guess they want to protect their rights to a full refund. And so I don't know about these refunds, but some businesses have opted to sell their potential refund rights to other entities or whatever. I guess it's kind of like if I have accounts receivable and I sell it to somebody else, dip financing or whatever you want to call it, then all of a sudden somehow I can sell that. And then if I get it back, if I get the refund, then they'll win big. The Supreme Court's ultimate decision is expected to be complex, and they say that it'll probably send it back to the lower courts for details to work it all out. And they say it'll be very complicated indeed. Do you think these companies will get refunds, and do you think they'll rule against Trump, or what do you think is going to happen, Heath?
I think they're kind of setting the stage for themselves to be in first position, Costco and others, if this does go against it. That's a lot of money, $200 billion on the table, and part of it is, could be in the potential revenue of all of these businesses if they win. And so, and then you have the ones who are selling off their rights to their winnings. So $1 in hand right now is worth, $2 down the road if it ever shows up, kind of a thing. So it makes sense that they're trying to position themselves in this scenario. But for the government to release funds, even if the Supreme Court does it, the government can tie up, these decisions for years or decades, and having a right to those funds or first in line, it might take a lot of time. It may be them just pushing back to say, hey, this isn't how we should be doing things. You need to find out a solution that's legal.
All right, I got a prediction. I think they're going to half rule against Trump. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're going to yank that $200 billion from the government. That won't happen. At the same time, I think that there might be some splitting of hairs, or in other words, the court hasn't just ruled on constitutionality of things. They've found ways to kind of rule and let everybody win and everybody lose at the same time kind of rulings. So I'm expecting something like that. I don't think they'll just hand Donald his head. I think they'll go ahead and put it back to the lower courts and just delay this thing and drag it out, and then they'll come up with some compromise that makes everybody happy. I personally don't think Trump has the authority to just randomly, arbitrarily put tariffs on anybody, anywhere, anytime, just willy-nilly. Oh, tariff this, tariff that. Oh, no, we're waiving this. Oh, we're doing this tariff, but we're going to do that. And that's all a congressional responsibility. And so I hope that the courts kind of stop Trump from this. But I also hope we can move forward with appropriate tariffs, because I believe in minimal but yet effective necessary tariffs to pay for the proper role of government. So there's a balance. I'm not against Trump on tariffs. I am against the willy-nilly actions of the president. Congress be darned, right?
Yeah. No, tariffs are meant to make trade fair between nations. Like if someone's going to tariff us on our cars we're shipping over there, 50% or 100% or whatever it is, like Japan does, their cars coming here, would be equally tariffed. Or that's usually how and that's the fair side of playing with governments. But it's not that case. And so there's an unfair advantage and in Japan for their cars being sold without the tariffs and ours having 100% tariff. And so it's a struggle, but it was meant to make everyone play fair. But because we are the consumer nation of the world, everyone wants to sell to us, and so we've kind of been laxed on tariffs and things, but then the end user is always the one who pays the tariff. Like, yes, that's the government collecting those funds to pay for its day-to-day functions, but the end user will always pay the tariff or the tax or whatever it is, and the end user is the individual who has to consume the most from his monthly earnings, and so it falls on the poorest of us to pay the most in these tariffs and taxes because they consume the most based upon the amount that they make. So it's a struggle because we don't see tariffs as another form of tax, but it is for those who consume, those who have certain goods and need those goods, and they come from other countries, and those tariffs, are added to those countries' goods, and now the bottom individual pays that, the consumer pays that. So it's tough. We all need to start playing fair. All nations need to start playing fair. If there's a 10% tariff on one nation, that nation should have the same 10% tariff, and there shouldn't be any issues. These tariffs shouldn't be ongoing. They should be, kind of being brought back down into reality once the other nations pull their tariffs down as well. Again, this is supposed to make the big boys play fair.
And if they play by the rules and reduce tariffs, we can all have low but effective tariffs. We could also then make sure that, hey, governments aren't subsidizing products or dumping products on the free market and all that kind of stuff. There is a proper role for the government to play, and it's universal stable tariffs. Mm-hmm. It's adjusting tariffs per countries based on if they're bad actors in the market, the tariffs go up. If they're appropriate actors in the market, the tariffs can go down. It was meant to be a level playing field mechanism, not a Donald Trump wield it like a big stick. We're going to beat you into submission, or we're going to do this and that. All I know is if we start to have tariffs on pizza, Americans are going to riot. Have you seen those commercials? Pizza, pizza. You ever heard that?
Yeah. Little Caesar pizza.
Well, anyway, nationwide pizza sales, they say, are slowing. Do you know what the national average cost of a cheese pizza is now?
Well, Little Caesar's $7-8.
Yeah, but that's at the low end of the kind of pizza deal. What do you think the average cost?
National
average cost.
Probably $14. $14.
You're close, my friend. Mm-hmm. And your number's probably right, because you know that the concerns about this are fake. Mm-hmm. But it's $17. The average cost of a large cheese pizza, $17 in the nation right now. Nearly $30. Mm-hmm. For a large pizza from Pizza Hut in Los Angeles. The pizza industry sales, they say, have been flat since 2023. Wow. With Pizza Hut experiencing 8 consecutive quarters of declining sales. Papa John's reported a shift from large to medium pizzas. And, of course, people are buying fewer toppings this quarter because they don't really have the money. Mm-hmm. Independent pizza shops are generally not experiencing the same decline as the big chains, and that's partly because they have more of a local following. Mm-hmm. The other reason is that they don't have bottom barrel prices for pizzas in the first place, so they got a little bit more margin to play with. Mm-hmm. They say a significant cost increase for ingredients is the cause. What do you say to all of that? I mean, we used to talk about the Big Mac index, where you could literally go to McDonald's and kind of compare a Big Mac to prices. Go ahead and skip that break. To prices. And what you'd say is, hey, the bun, so you got bread, the cheese, the sauce, the meat, and it's really a good cross-section of the economy. Now it's kind of like a pizza index is emerging. Heath, very strange.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't get pegged to Costco's pizza, because they have the largest and cheapest pizzas out there. Yeah, no, it's
$12 for a massive pizza.
Something like that. Yeah, and it weighs a ton. Yeah, and they don't skimp on anything. But yeah, it would be an interesting index to see. I just like we already have the consumer price index, and the products that have been in that since the 80s have changed over the time, just so that doesn't look as bad as it was. I mean, when we first started it back in the 80s, they had a steak in there. Now they have a replacement for the steak as hamburger, saying it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. So if we have, an index for pizza or something like that, they'll just play around with the numbers down the road to say, hey, it's not so bad. It's this, it's that. They don't really use the same olives or the same ingredients, or they're fine.
Yeah, we went from fresh olives and mushrooms to canned, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Stuff like that. They're always going to change the index and play with the numbers to make it look better than it was. I first started seeing this back when Obama's unemployment numbers, they started rearranging the numbers and taking people who were 6 months or longer on unemployment and taking them out of the workforce. And so it's just like, if you can play with the numbers long enough, you can get whatever number you want. And that's what they kind of do. So an index would be good to see. It'd be interesting to see what the data would be on this if they kept it consistent.
If you used pizza and a Big Mac, you could call it the PMAC index.
There you go. I like that.
I just find it fascinating when you look at this, though. Significant increased cost for ingredients. And I just covered, for example, a company. The company's called Health Code, and they have like a meal replacement drink. A lot of times people on keto use it or whatever else, and I eat a lot of Health Code products. But Health Code products, it's a company offering nutrition shakes. They announced cost increases, and they literally sent an email to all their people, all their customers, said, we don't want to do this. We have no choice, though. The cost of ingredients are up 40%. The cost of shipping up 35%.
Yo.
And the increased cost for packaging is up 50%. We're so sorry. We don't have a choice in the matter. And, this adjustment is going to change all of our pricing. It's something we've fought. We didn't want to do, but we have no choice. And so you look at that and you go, is that fake? Is that just, fake, Donald?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You think these people really want to just raise the price like that? So they raised the price from $60 to $70 for the shakes. Mm-hmm. It's a pack of like 14 days worth of shake. I mean, that's a significant increase, $10.
Yeah. Yeah, 18% or so. And it's one of those things where it's like we keep getting told one thing and seeing another thing, and the Donald doesn't have the right to gaslight us like this. Things are more expensive across the board. Yes, I've been surprised that fuel prices haven't gone up as much as they have, and I think that's one of the ones that we complain about the most. And so, I think that's one that has been held a little bit more steady than others, but across the board, people are seeing it. Businesses are seeing it. They're apologizing. At least this business let their customers know, versus others who just they will take the inflation and then decrease, the ounces in there or whatever else, and just have the same packaging, but just instead of 16 ounces, it's 13.8 or whatever it is. and decrease.
Yeah, the way Joe Biden described it is you have less Snickers in your Snickers bar there, Heath.
Yeah, exactly.
I just find it anyway. It's interesting to me, and this company went on to explain in their email. Not only are all these costs going up, and they have no choice, but then they said other companies are reducing the size of their packaging or decreasing the quality of the ingredients. We refuse to do those things. Would rather be transparent. We don't want to raise your costs, but we have no choice if we're going to keep producing what you've been getting all along. See, that transparency to me is critical.
Yes. We need more straightforward talkers, individuals who are willing to share why things are the way they are, and not just tell us this is how it is. If you, here in the shop, like we're dealing with a lot of our wholesalers are increasing their spreads on a lot of product because they're getting super heavy in it. Like silver, it's super high in the price right now, and so a lot of people have been dumping it. And so our wholesalers are paying way less to us. And so I have to compensate for that and pay way less to them, but they get it. And the wholesalers are backlogged. And so it's taken longer for them to pay out. And so, these adjustments, as long as you're straightforward and open with the individuals and explain to them, like, this is what's happening to us. And so that's why you're seeing this price, or that's why you're seeing, maybe a post-dated check or things like that. If once they understand it, they're fine with it. But just giving it to them and expecting them to like swallow that, like you have to help them see your side of the reality that you're in, so that and everyone's fine with it once you explain it. Like, people want that transparency. They want to understand why it is the way it is. And
they're not fine with it happening, but what it shifts the blame to more of an economic discussion rather than it does to attack a specific company, right? Mm-hmm. I think we need to have basically at the pizza, counter, there'd be a sign that would point and be like, Donald did that. I'm joking, but I'm making a point, right? That you know what? It's not a pizza. The pizza people aren't just getting rich and just ripping you off, or the people with this health code. They're not just ripping you off. They have no choice, and they can either play a game and increase the cost 10%, decrease the size of the package 10%, and call it a day. But then people feel kind of betrayed. It's like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what they do too is they will basically make the cookies smaller. So you get a cookie, it's just a smaller cookie. When you go, when I was a kid, man, they had big cookies. Mm-hmm. Now the cookies are teeny. It's kind of like that. So it's really frustrating for people. But Scott Bessent, he's the Treasury Secretary, don't you know? Mm-hmm. He's involved in selecting the next chair for the Federal Reserve. It's a decision closely monitored by Trump, and Trump is kind of wanting somebody who will give significant interest rate cuts. Trump, of course, has criticized his former Treasury Secretary, Stephen M. Mnuchin, for recommending Jerome H. Powell back in 2017. Trump believes he didn't drop interest rates fast enough. Trump's remarks indicate a high expectation for Bessent to pick someone who will aggressively cut interest rates. Trump mentioned at a cabinet meeting that his decision on the next chair might be announced early next year. Trump has endorsed Bessent and hinted at possibly having him be the next Fed chair. Now, here's what I find interesting, or what I want to say about this, Heath, and your thoughts. Yeah. Why do we want to debate who the next chair is? Okay, all they can do is put their finger up in the wind and try to gauge the economy, try to gauge society, try to gauge where the wind's blowing like a politician would do. That's all they can do. They don't have economic data that's real, or they lie about it. Why do we need a Federal Reserve chairman at all? Why don't we just shut down the Fed, audit Fort Knox, get rid of this chairman, and then we don't need to worry about whether he puts his finger up in the wind or not?
Oh, there you go. I'm with you on that one. The Fed is the U.S.'s biggest bane. Our biggest struggle is the Fed. And not having the right to print our own money and issue it to the banks for interest and earn that. Because that's where we have to force tariffs and we have to force taxes on the citizens and everything else, because we can't collect the interest on the banks like we used to before the Federal Reserve stepped in. If we had that interest that the banks were paying the U.S. government, that would take care of that was taking care of the government's expenditures. But now we're stuck with the Fed. But all Donald wants is a yes man. And I don't get why he wants to drastically decrease the interest rates, because if people understand what that's going to cause more inflation. The interest rates going up are pulling money out of the system that Donald dumped into the system to cause the inflation we previously saw during Biden's administration. Like, we're stuck. Like, you can't decrease interest rates, and the only people who benefit from decreased interest rates are large businesses that can borrow cheap money, buy their shares back, keep showing their shares are worth more and more and more, like most of the people on the S&P. Or most of the business on the S&P, but like this is not going to help the small individual dropping the interest rates, because we're going to see more inflation if he does. Like, it's a two-edged sword. Like, people want the lower interest rates to get into houses and stuff and to make things more affordable, but at the same time, we're going to be paying it the other direction from the inflation that's going to happen and continue to happen if we don't pull more money out of the system that was dumped in there. So,
in my mind, what we don't need is really better interest rates. If I drop the interest rate from 6% to 4% or whatever else, that's not really that critical. What's critical in my mind is homes are so overpriced, people can't afford them. And supply and demand would say, hey, if the houses are too expensive for people to buy, houses have to cost less.
Well, this is the curveball that I don't like, coming down the pike is the Donald's talking about 50-year mortgages. If we have a 50-year, well, no thanks, exactly. But if we have a 50-year mortgage and that payment now becomes affordable, that will just drive the prices of homes continuing to go up. Like, the demand will come back because the ability to pay a smaller payment is available, even though it's for 50 years. But
I think we ought to have 1,000-year mortgages, don't you?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and then everybody can just live in their house. No one will ever own them. And like 20 generations later, they'll be like, well, it'd be more like 50 generations or whatever for 1,000 years or whatever. Yeah. It'd be kind of like, hey, you know what? 50 generations ago, my parents bought this house. I'm just kidding. It's just not sustainable is the point I'm driving at, folks. It's insane. It's kind of like giving them a minimum wage of like $200 an hour, as if that's going to help also. It's a fraud, folks. It's a scam. So what's fake is the lying from all these politicians about any side of these discussions. Nobody's bringing up the real issues. One of the real issues in the last story of this segment here, recent MSNBC poll says that a growing number of Americans, 6 in 10 registered voters, believe that four-year colleges are not worth the paper they're printed on. The degree is not worth the cost. They say, hey, people end up with no skills, significant debt, conducted by this Hart Research Corporation, Public Opinion Strategies or whatever. 53% said the college is worth the expense, like in 2013. Now only 33% see the value. Heath?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, I got my degree back in 2012, and it was in economics. And I asked the dean at that time, his name was Lo Glenn. I said, hey, when do I get to study, other than Keynesian, when do I get to study Austrian economics or Chicago-style economics? And he came back to me with a very weird statement. He said, you're not. The accrediting agency gives me what I have to teach, and if I don't teach it, I can't give a degree. That would just be me adding on top of what they tell me to teach you. So what they're teaching us is not necessarily for the benefit of those learning it. So yes, the degrees aren't on the cutting edge of anything anymore, especially in the economics. I mean, like, I didn't even get to see an alternative perspective besides the Keynesian. That's why our country's in so much issue, is because all the economists that come out of the universities are taught Keynesian economics. Government can spend our way out of recessions, kind of junk. This isn't beneficial, and yeah, these degrees are overpriced.
They say this change in perspective also reflects an increased interest in more economically feasible options like the trades, technical and vocational programs, and the like. So there you have that. Americans are waking up and knowing the truth. Heath Perkins, thank you so much. We'll have you back soon, sir.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sam.
FreeWaterCoinCo.com doing a phenomenal job on your radio. Think FreeWaterCoinCo.com when you want constitutional currency and a hedge against this inflation that Donald says doesn't exist. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
daily Liberty Newswire. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. After almost 5 years, the FBI has reportedly made an arrest in its investigation of pipe bombs planted at 2 locations in Washington, D.C. on the eve of the 2021 U.S. Capitol riot.
Seeking a breakthrough in the case as this year began, the FBI published additional information about its investigation, including an estimate of the suspect's height. It also released a previously withheld video of the shadowy image of the suspect placing one of the bombs on the evening of January 5th, 2021, near the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees in D.C. The devices did not detonate and no one was hurt. George Williams, Washington.
Presidential envoy Steve Witkoff is meeting in Florida today with Ukrainian officials as the Trump administration continues trying for a deal to end the war in Ukraine. President Trump referring to his team's earlier meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now, whether or not, that was their impression. Their impression was that he would like to see the war ended. I think he'd like to get back to dealing a more normal life. I think he'd like to be trading with the United States of America, frankly, instead of, losing thousands of soldiers a week.
Calling them ridiculously expensive, burdensome, and horrible, President Trump is trashing Joe Biden's stringent fuel economy standards for new vehicles. Mr. Trump says the move should cut at least $1,000 from the cost of a new vehicle, while encouraging automakers to invest more in their American manufacturing while producing vehicles that consumers really want. Unemployment applications fell last week, dropping to 191,000. That is the lowest level in more than 3 years. Watching Wall Street, the Dow is up about 10 points, while the Nasdaq 17 points in the red. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, it's Mike Gallagher. The holidays are right around the corner, and you know what that means. Travel, gifts, family gatherings, and a whole lot of spending. Here's a way to get ahead of it all. Call my friends Mike and Brian and the team at Fellowship Home Loans. Rates have dropped again. That means you could refinance, lower your monthly payment, even skip your next 2 mortgage payments. That's right, 2 months with no mortgage payment. Put away the checkbook. Keep that money for the holidays. You won't be making any more payments till 2026. Maybe you're not looking to refinance, but you need access to cash. Well, Fellowship now offers their own HELOC and line of credit. Approval just takes a few minutes, and you can have funds in your account in as little as 4 days. Use it to pay off bills, finish a renovation, or simply get ready for the new year. Just go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Scott Bradley here. Most Americans are painfully aware that the nation is on the wrong track and in dire straits. Unfortunately, most political pundits only nibble around the edges when they claim to address the issues. Even worse, many of the so-called solutions are simply rewarmed servings of what got us into the mess we currently face. And the politicians think we're so gullible and naive that we'll buy their lies that they have reformed and now understand where they led us astray. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that they simply wish to continue to hold power. The solution to America's challenges is found in returning to the timeless principles found in the United States Constitution. My book and lecture series will reawaken in Americans an understanding and love of the principles which made this nation the freest, most prosperous, happiest, and most respected nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com and order my book and lectures to begin the restoration of this great nation.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
All right, I mentioned this before, but I want to highlight it because there's a couple of points more to make about this. A recent NBC poll indicates a growing number of Americans, basically 6 in 10 registered voters, are basically saying, hey, man, a 4-year college degree ain't worth it anymore. It's not worth the cost. They attribute this to graduates often lacking specific skills. Think about that, lacking job skills after a 4-year degree. Now, understand, it's not just a 4-year degree. These people went to school from kindergarten through 12th grade, so 13 years. If they didn't do Head Start or preschool or anything else, it's 13 years, and then 4 years for your degree. 17 years in government education, and you don't have job skills, and you've accumulated significant debt, folks. It's just not worth it. More Americans are realizing. But they're also, in my opinion, finding the solution on their own. This is an incredible study, by the way. This change in perspective, they say, also reflects an increased interest in, quote, more economically feasible educational routes, such as technical and vocational programs. To me, that's the key. Okay? It really is. Because remember what a technical program is, or a vocational program, what it is they say, hey, you want to be a plumber? You want to be a pipe fitter? You want to be a welder, or whatever the case may be. You want to get a degree in, say, social media marketing? You want to get a degree in analytics, or you want to get a certificate, I should say, not a degree. See, that's the other kind of weird thing. It's a degree if you go through the big boys, spend a lot of money and come out with no skills. It's just a certificate if you don't, you see. Isn't that weird how they play those games? But in the end of the day, if you get a certificate, what you've really done oftentimes is you've accelerated your learning. You've said, I'm not going to go to their social science classes and their this and that. I'm interested in plumbing, so I'm going to focus on plumbing. And it takes a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, or an electrician, you become a journeyman, you graduate through the ranks of their own, quote, certifications. They've got a lot of certifications in IT too. You can get, Microsoft certifications, Google or Amazon certifications in a lot of their different things. Hey, if you come out of it with an Amazon certification for a lot of Amazon products in IT, you're very employable. You just didn't take the extra math and the extra English and the extra science and the music courses and all the different sideshow stuff. And so I personally think we need to change the language to be fair. If you get a social media marketing certificate, why isn't it a degree? Oh, because you didn't go to the 4-year college and take 2 years of general education. Think about that. What is that all about? I go to school for 13 years, and then I go to a 2-year general education. Didn't my kindergarten and 12 years of school create my general education requirements, for crying out? Oh, no, sir. You got to. So 15 years in, and at the end of the day, you say, yeah, I've got an associate's degree. I've got a general education degree now after 15 long years. And by the way, in those 15 long years, I took every summer off and just partied and played and hung out and forgot half of what I learned in the previous year. Had to spend the next couple of months each year, so 3 months off and then a month or two trying to get caught up on what I forgot. So we're going to waste 5 months out of every year in the 15-year plan. And then out of the deal, I've only got a general. I'm just insane. I've only got a general education now. Now I better go get a real education so I can have a degree, you see. I mean, it's insanity, ladies and gentlemen. And we seem to think that's fine. At least we've been duped for years thinking that's fine. Now we know that it's not. 6 in 10 voters are going, this is bogus. Hey, these 4-year colleges are not worth the cost. You don't even end up with the skills that you need. It'd be one thing if you accumulated a lot of debt, but you had the skills to make good money and pay off that debt. But you come out of it without even the skills. So think about it. I go to school for 17 years. Kindergarten, 12 years through high school, that's 13. My 2 years of general education, that's 15. And then 2 more years, now I got a bachelor's. 17 years in government schools, taking 3 months off every one of those years. My goodness gracious. What would that be? 4 years of wasted time on the summers? And then at the end, all I've got's a bachelor's. I mean, I really need to have a master's if I'm going to be anybody. And the masters used to think when I was a kid 50 years ago, oh, extra year gets you a master's. No, now it's about 2. So now you're in school for 19 years to get a master's degree. And you're still not even considered a doctor. No, sir. It's just insanity, folks. We've lost our minds. But Americans are waking up. This change in perspective is real. And Americans are realizing they've been played for suckers and it's going to stop. The cost of education has gone up way beyond inflationary numbers. And this isn't a joke. Okay, folks? I'm not telling you a joke. But back in the day when I used to talk to teachers and educators and professionals, and, you know, they used to say, we need more money for education, Sam. The teachers, my gosh, the teacher has to go out and spend her own personal money on pencils because nobody has pencil. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, Sam, it's horrible out there. The teachers, you know, they're self-sacrificing and then you go dig in and you find out the teachers make decent money. Well, Sam, a teacher only starts out at $45,000 a year. Yeah, but they only work 3/4 of the year too. And they get all weekends off every time. Oh, no, Sam, the teacher has to work real hard to prepare their lessons. By golly, they got to work around the clock. You're partying on Christmas, and they're just down there, pencil to the grind, trying to create their next lesson. Why? Why? How much has math changed? Listen carefully. How much has math changed in the last 50 years? Now, let me quantify this or qualify this for the average Joe, because most people don't need more than general math skills. I mean, they need a little bit of multiply and divide and subtract and add and a little bit of maybe a little bit of, what would be the term? You don't need calculus, do you? You don't need beyond calculus. You need a little bit of math skills. But how much has that basic math changed over the last 50 years? Why do these teachers, if they've been teaching for a while, why do they have to struggle so hard for each lesson? Well, Sam, because you got to make it unique and different. Yeah, you got to put global warming in there. You got to, hey, if Johnny is sitting in the forest and it's hotter than all get out because of global warming, you know, how many trees should Johnny prevent from being cut down? You know, kind of stuff, right? If we really think about math and we think about general math skills, then we go on to what? Algebra, calculus, and then what? We don't have basic business math skills to understand how much we're getting ripped off on interest. We don't know how to figure out when we're laying carpet or when we're putting up drywall, how to figure out the square footage or the, you know, yardage of something. We don't know those things. See, we've studied calculus, and 20 years later, we forgot all that we learned. So Johnny comes up and he's learning calculus. So mom sits down with Johnny to try to help him figure out calculus, and mom goes, I don't remember. And Johnny says, yeah, Mom, why don't you get me a real tutor? And then the tutor says, hey, this is the way I taught it. And then the kid's like, that's not the way they teach it in my class. By golly, that ain't the way it is. How much has math changed? How much has science changed? And how much has it changed for the better? Because Anthony Fauci told you that he was following the science. Turns out he lied, should be prosecuted and thrown in the clink, but no. And then he says, we're following the science. And then he comes back and he says, I am the science. Lawyers used to follow the law, the supreme law of the land, the law. And now the judges just simply smirk and go, I am the law. See? And then we run around on education and act like, oh man, things are so different. They got to study really hard for their lessons, you know. But I think about teachers, and they get, what, 3 months off every year? They get every single holiday as a break. They get a long Christmas break. They get a spring break. They get all these holidays. And then they don't work 3 months of the year. They have a great job. And they get paid pretty dang good when you figure that all out, right? $45,000 a year, 3 months off a year, every single holiday off, all the weekends off. It's not so bad after all, is it? Now, I'm not downing teachers. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay teachers more, because I think the right kind of teachers ought to get paid more. Why we pay football players and basketball players and actresses and rock stars and musicians and all these people billions of dollars, but yet the teachers are on $45,000 a year. That is a problem. I don't disagree. But these teachers, pleading poor, acting like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, is fraud. It's a lie. And then this idea that the teachers have to buy their own crayons for the kids. I couldn't buy the name brand crayons for my kids this year. Everything's really tough. I had to eat a cheese pizza, no pepperoni on it, but at least I got crayons for the kids, crayons for the kids. That's what it's all about. See, they're just playing games. Politicians are like that too. So the story is, I asked these teachers, these educators, how much money do you need? If I could just make your world perfect, how much money do you need? And none of them would answer the question. The only answer is, whatever you're giving me, it needs to be more. You comfortable with that? Speaking of following the science, do you know who Jay Bhattacharya is? He's director of the National Institutes of Health. We'll talk about him coming up in seconds. I'm Sam Bushman. You are watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
All right, I got a quick side note before I go to the next story about Jay, Dr. J, if you will. But I want to highlight this because it's late breaking. I told you that they had a suspect. It was a man. We didn't have all the details about the pipe bombing. Took place January 5, 2021. The January 6th eve before January 6th, whatever you want to call it. FBI arrests a suspect now identified as, guy's name is Brian Cole. Brian Cole. He's of Virginia. They say he's in federal custody now after authorities linked him to the pipe bomb planted just blocks from the U.S. Capitol on January 5th. Very interesting indeed. And I hope they got the right guy, and I hope we have accountability for that. I just don't understand how it can take 5 years. And then all of a sudden we're just getting the pay dirt on it now and stuff like that. I don't know. It's very strange. Is it really true that they really got the right guy? I don't know. The sad part about it is you just can't trust them anymore. You know, you'd hope with Cash Patel and company there that you'd get answers that you could trust. Right now, I don't know if they just got a guy because they feel like they have to do something to make the FBI look good. I mean, I don't know. But our prayers are that we stop criminal activity all over the country. Our prayers are that the government starts to tell the truth and develops a relationship of trust with the American people. That's what I'd love to see, right? Just saying. All right, anyway, there you go for that. Sorry for the sidetrack. Jay Bhattacharya, is that how you say his name? Anyway, the guy's director of the National Institutes of Health, along with his deputy. This guy's name is Matthew Memeli, I think is how you say it. I don't know. I guess in City Journal now has a shift in academic preparedness. Pandemic preparedness. Pandemic preparedness. And the reason why is they say they want to improve metabolic health to tackle big diseases, right? Future diseases. They want to be able to fend off novel pathogens. The pair, so Jay and this other guy, Matthew, they criticized traditional pandemic responses such as social distancing, mask mandates, and the like. They say what we need to do instead of those clown show efforts, we need to work on personal health initiatives, such as controlling diabetes, hypertension, and such. Despite their, quote, proposed strategy, significant health challenges remain prevalent in the United States. Okay, listen to these numbers to kind of help put things in perspective. They say with 38 million people diagnosed with diabetes, 38 million, over 100 million with heart disease. And they say more than 100 million people who are obese. Bhattacharya and this, how do you say his name? Memeli? Anyway, Bhattacharya and Memeli's recommendations suggest a move towards what they call public health libertarianism. Wow. They want to affect a change in the mindset in the U.S. And then they say, despite evidence showing a traditional mitigation measures as working. A recent poll revealed a mix of sentiment on pandemic policy, with a significant portion still valuing vaccine schedules, pandemic restrictions, while also showing reluctance to embrace such measures in the future. Now, here's what I find interesting. These guys all claim, oh, the traditional methods work. And my response is, how well did social distancing work? There's so many dead people from COVID. How many dead people from the vaccines? They still won't discuss or answer or deal with that, right? So I really support this effort by Dr. J and company to say we need to work on health comorbidities. We really need to deal with this. If you've got diabetes, we got to work on helping you understand what you need to do to manage it properly. If you've got heart problems or if you've got whatever, we've got to find ways to kind of mitigate or deal with that. Okay? I know we've got health challenges remaining in the United States. 100 million people obese, more than 100 million, more than 100 million with a heart attack or heart issues, diabetes. I mean, I get that these things are real. But here's the point. I don't think that what we do is we say, oh, Jay's plan is a bad deal. He wants to move away from traditional solutions. So you divide the population that way. You say, we're for traditional solutions. They work great. Well, then why do we have over 100 million people with heart problems? Why do we have over 100 million people that are obese? Why do we have over 38 million people with diabetes? Certainly, clearly, something's wrong. I don't think we should debate about that and one side pretend it's not true and the other side double down and declare it's true. Why don't we just acknowledge the truth? Now, I agree when, these guys criticize, the pair criticize traditional pandemic responses. If you like those pandemic responses, don't worry about their criticism of it. But be honest with yourself and come back and say, hey, what about saying that some of these traditional methods might work, and we can cling to some of that if it's science-based. But what about looking at the new landscape as Dr. J and others are doing? Looking at it and saying, hey, we can make a lot of difference by helping people manage their pre-existing conditions. We can work on educating people. What causes type 2 diabetes? We should discuss that. Why do people have so many heart problems? Why are people so obese? What can be done to mitigate that, change that, make a difference there? I think that Dr. J and company are onto something. But see, all the naysayers want to just double down and go, oh, Jay, you're out in the weeds. And then Jay says, no, you're out in the weeds. And now we've got this divide and this clown fight that's not worth anything. Why don't we go back and say, let's test the, traditional methods, traditional pandemic responses, and let's embrace the ones that have scientific backing. But for example, social distancing, even, what's that guy's name? The clown that ought to be in prison? Oh, shoot. Anyway, whatever his name is, the big scientist guy, right? He admitted the science wasn't real, that the 6-foot social distancing was nothing. It wasn't true. It wasn't real. It was just, hey, somebody made it up or whatever, and it kind of stuck. Well, why don't we be honest and jettison that? I think we should. We need to be open-minded. We need to be willing to look at all the different realities. And when Dr. J and these other people, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and others, are saying, hey, this social distancing is not scientific, so let's jettison it. Well, anybody in their right scientific mind would agree. Let's get rid of it. It's not backed in science. Now, when it comes to things that will work, hey, why not educate people about diabetes? What causes it? What you can do to reduce it? What you can do to manage it? What you can do to prevent it in the first place? Imagine that. See, I think we need to follow the science. I mean, when they said that, they're right. The problem is, whose science? What science? And I would say fact-based science. That is that social distancing didn't work, doesn't work, never worked. It wasn't scientific in the first place. The sooner we acknowledge that, the better off we are. And then the sooner we do agree that, hey, if you've got diabetes, let's help you manage it. If you don't have diabetes yet, we want to make sure that you don't get it. What's the primary drivers of diabetes type 2 for people? We already know a lot of these things. We already have the science. But are we teaching people? Are we educating people? Are we working on helping people follow the guidelines or understand the guidelines? Right? How about mass mandates? They're bogus too. A mandate's not even a law, right? Okay? They want to have personal health initiatives and enhance public health. I support that. Why don't we encourage people to exercise? Encourage people to eat right. Isn't that what the 4 food groups were about back in the day? Now we find out those 4 food groups aren't even a great summary. You got to think about it a little differently. You got to think about macros and, carbs and protein and all this stuff, fat, and, how do you get it from what food groups when, what's better, what's not, hey, when are we going to stop adding sugar to milk and stuff like that? Pasteurizing the milk takes out a lot of the health benefits of drinking milk. A lot of the normal antibodies that you gain and different things from society. How about eating honey instead of sugar? Honey does all kinds of good things for you. Are we going to talk about these things? See, I think these people that are attacking Dr. J and company, they're clowns. They're not willing to even have an open mind and discuss these things. But I think that Dr. J is onto something, just my opinion. That's good news that they're at least discussing it, and I wanted to bring it to the table and praise Dr. J and crew. The North Dakota Supreme Court revived a near total abortion ban after a 3-2 split decision. The court upheld the district court's judge's September 2024 declaration that, hey, the North Dakota law is unconstitutionally vague. Yeah, you got to have 4 justices declared unconstitutional. They didn't get that. Therefore, boom. North Dakota's Attorney General, Drew Wrigley, and pro-life organizations like Students for Life support this. They want to protect the unborn. Yeah, the state constitution does not imply a right to an abortion. Jared Tuft, the justice there, said. Great news. Anyway, I'm grateful for the good news we're hearing. Truth on Science from Dr. J and Company, standing for pro-life in North Dakota. Come on, baby. Good news happening. But we need to learn not to be gaslighted, and we're gaslighted by too many segments of our society. Liberty Roundtable Live is here to help prevent that, help you think for yourself, help you analyze things based on facts, not fiction. I'm Sam Bushman. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net. Incredible talk show hosts around the clock. Check it out, lovingliberty.net. I'm Sam Bushman. God save the Republic of the United States of America.